If the Suns get CP3,
7 seed.
a 60-win
Okay,
team.
all right, we're moving on.
Yo,
We're moving
yo,
on.
yo.
We're moving on. 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 I thought you were about to say like I thought you were about to say a great playoff team.
Yo, you
I'd
realize?
be like, okay, I can see that.
Bro, hold on. You realize there's only 72 games this season.
Yeah.
What I mean when I say 60 wins is on pace for 60 wins, like 50-something wins in this now regular season.
Yo, you're wildin', bro. You're wildin', bro.
So Phoenix is the first team to make a splash this offseason with their latest acquisition of Chris Paul. And I could easily come up here and talk about how the Thunder won or the Suns won this trade, but that would be pointless because I believe that both sides gained what they needed to gain from this transaction. You have the Oklahoma City Thunder, who gained a young player in Kelly Oubre and a top 10 pick in this upcoming draft class. And then you have the Phoenix Suns, who gained one of the better point guards in the league, who can contribute in an ever-growing Western Conference that can convince Devin Booker from leaving the organization due to their lack of success over the course of his career. But before I dive into how this trade impacts the Phoenix Suns and their plans moving forward, let me give a shout out to Official Basketball University. For those who do not know, I make articles about the NBA, but I do have a platform which is called Official Basketball University. They do NBA analysis, talk about off-season moves, so make sure you go and subscribe to them because they are going to be dropping some bangers for the upcoming off-season. Also, they're going to cover the draft and just many other NBA topics. You can subscribe by giving your email and you'll get consistent updates from whichever writers you choose to follow. But without further ado, let's get back to the topic, and that is CP3 on the Phoenix Suns. When you look at the Phoenix Suns roster last season, I don't think a lot of people understand just how good they were. After getting off to a hot start in the beginning of the season, many people thought the Phoenix Suns could potentially push for a playoff opportunity. Devin Booker was killing it in the beginning of the season with shooting splits that were just ridiculous, and also you have other players who stepped up such as Kelly Oubre, who was a 19-point per game scorer and provided them good perimeter defense as well. Though Ricky Rubio was inefficient as he always is, his playmaking was well appreciated on this team, and he did shoot relatively decent considering his expectations with good perimeter defense, and they had a huge upgrade at the point guard position from the previous season. Coupled that with other players stepping up such as Cameron Johnson, Aaron Baines, and Mikal Bridges, and the Phoenix Suns were rolling until they hit that wall called reality, because the Suns really just had a little hot streak and eventually they came back down to earth. But I don't think a lot of people consider the fact that they did deal with some injuries and some suspensions, I might add, to DeAndre Ayton. Let's not forget that DeAndre Ayton missed 25 games in the beginning of the season. So during their little hot streak, Ayton wasn't even playing. And when Ayton came back, he more than proved why he is a pillar of this franchise, because over the last 20 games of the season before the bubble, he averaged 21 points along with 13 rebounds and 2 blocks, shooting 55% from the field and 79% from the free throw line. And those numbers don't even take into account his improvement on the defensive side of the ball, because he moves his feet very well, can keep up with some perimeter players, and he can defend the rim at a really competent and respectable level. Next year, I expect him to take a jump not only offensively, as I expect his jump shot to continue to improve because he's already got that mid-range jumper down, but I also expect his defense to take on a new heights as well. But now that we've looked at this entire team, now you add Chris Paul into the mix. And sure, Kelly Oubre is gone and Ricky Rubio as well, but they can give more minutes to Mikal Bridges, who I assume will be their new starting small forward, and you could throw Cameron Johnson at the power forward position, and I think you have a really competent starting five. You have Chris Paul, who's one of the best playmakers in the league running point. Devin Booker can play off ball for Chris Paul and get even more opportunities than he got last year at Ricky Rubio. And then at the 3, you have Mikal Bridges, who can defend and space the floor. Sure, he may not be a perfect three-point shooter, but with more opportunities from Chris Paul, I expect his percentages to increase and just naturally get better due to more experience and playing time. The only real issue with the starting 5 is the power forward position, because I don't really know how Cameron Johnson's going to fare, especially facing certain power forwards in the league, but we'll just have to wait and see that. He can definitely space the floor, so his contributions offensively should be more than a justification for why he should be in the starting lineup playing the power forward position. And then at DeAndre Ayton's position, the center, I think that he's going to dominate, especially having Chris Paul, who works well with any big. Now, I know what a lot of people are going to say in the comment section. Mustard, you are rushing the gun far too early. This is the Phoenix Suns. They're incompetent. What if Chris Paul gets hurt? What if Devin Booker's just not that good as a number one option on a legitimate playoff team? And to all those concerns, I understand. Of course, we have not seen them play yet, and for all we know, Chris Paul could go back to being the same injury-prone player next year. Those are definitely some possibilities that could happen next season. But I think people need to understand that Chris Paul and Jimmy Butler are perfect examples of a culture change. And for a team like Phoenix, that's more valuable than anything right now. Look at Jimmy Butler when he went to Minnesota. Minnesota was nothing before he got there. As soon as he got there, they were competing in the Western Conference and were a top 4 seed until he got hurt mid-season. And then you look at Chris Paul's last year in OKC. Let's be real, that team doesn't even win 30 games without him. They don't have anybody that can play make consistently, and he was their defensive leader. Because people forget that when it comes to defense, communication is a huge key. And when you watch Chris Paul, sure, he may not have the lateral quickness or the speed that he once had in his earlier days to keep up with some players, but his communication on the defensive end definitely rubbed off on a lot of the young players on that team, primarily Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And I think being paired in the backcourt with someone like Devin Booker, who lapses heavily on the defensive side of the ball, primarily due to effort, Chris Paul can have that same and similar effect on him and that entire organization. The only real issue that I think people should have with this team is injuries, because if that's your concern, I completely understand. Chris Paul is making over $40 million a year, and though he is still a star and a top 15 player, at least in my eyes, he's still someone that has a very long history of injuries and is on the backside of his career. So I completely understand that argument, but I think you need to take that risk if you're a team like the Phoenix Suns, because culture matters. Teams like them, the New York Knicks, Chicago Bulls, the Minnesota Timberwolves, they add players to their teams and top draft picks to their teams, I should add, every single season. So why can't they get it together? Obviously, talent plays a factor into that, but a strong culture is a factor as well. These teams lack that, and honestly, look at the Miami Heat, Los Angeles Clippers, and Minnesota Timberwolves. Before they got Jimmy Butler or Chris Paul, their organization was in shambles. And once they got there, they established a culture that is still living on to this day in those organizations, outside of the Timberwolves, of course. But in conclusion, when I look at this Phoenix Suns roster, this is a very competent team, even if Chris Paul never joined. And sure, there are still a few roster changes I think they should make, especially with beefing up their bench. But I think if they can make those adjustments, assuming they do so, I think they could be a top team in this conference. So as far as I'm concerned, don't be surprised if they're a top 4 seed in the West. But hey, that's just my opinion. Let me know your opinions down below in the comment section, and if you enjoyed this video, drop a like, subscribe, and push the bell for post notifications. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, my social media links are down below. Y'all stay safe, have a great day, and do not forget to wear a mask. I'm out. Peace.